Have you ever walked into a room full of people and felt like you were the only one not fully inside it? Everyone's laughing. The music is loud. Conversations overlap. But instead of getting pulled into the energy, you're studying it. You notice the forced smile, the subtle tension between two friends, the insecurity hiding behind confidence. You're not just in the room, you're decoding it. And after an hour, you're exhausted. Not because you hate people, not because you're antisocial, but because your brain never stops scanning. If that sounds familiar, you're not awkward. You're not broken. You might be an intuitive introvert in a world built for noise. And today, we're going to break down exactly what that means. There's a specific kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone, it comes from being surrounded by people and still feeling separate. Intuitive introverts know this feeling well. While others engage at surface level, your brain dives deeper automatically. You track tone shifts. You analyze word choices. You sense emotional undercurrents. You predict how conversations will unfold before they finish. And it's not intentional, it's automatic. For years, introversion was misunderstood as shyness or weak social skills. But neuroscience tells a different story. The difference between introverts and extroverts isn't about loving or hating people, it's about stimulation. Extroverted brains thrive on dopamine spikes. Loud rooms, fast exchanges, novelty. Their nervous system activates and sharpens, but introverted brains reach saturation faster. What feels energizing to others feels overwhelming to you. Too much noise, too many moving parts, too much unpredictability. Instead, your brain prefers depth chemistry, focused attention, internal reflection, meaningful dialogue. Solitude restores your system because it shifts you into parasympathetic mode. The state where thinking becomes clearer instead of louder. Now add intuition to that. Intuitive minds don't process information linearly. They look for patterns, future implications, hidden structures. When someone asks you a simple question, your brain doesn't grab the first answer. It runs simulations. It checks past experiences. It scans emotional context. That pause before you speak isn't awkwardness, it's integration. But here's where things get more complex. Some intuitive introverts were born observant. Others became observant. Developmental psychology shows that temperament is partly biological. Some children are naturally reflective and sensitive to stimuli, but environment shapes the rest. If you grew up in a calm, validating space, your depth likely became a strength early. You learn to trust your perception. If you grew up in unpredictability, criticism, or emotional tension, your observation may have sharpened into vigilance. You learn to read micro-expressions, tone changes, subtle cues, not as curiosity, as protection. Over time, that survival skill feels like intuition, and sometimes, it is both. This is why intuitive introverts often experience a strange contradiction. You can read people quickly. You sense inconsistencies before others notice. You predict outcomes early, but you also overanalyze. Pattern recognition is your cognitive advantage. Your brain collects fragments of data and compresses them into impressions. It feels like a gut feeling, but neurologically it's rapid subconscious processing. However, the same system that detects truth can also amplify fear. If you've experienced rejection, you may overdetect it. If you've experienced betrayal, you may scan for it constantly. This is where calibrated intuition matters. Real power isn't just sensing patterns. It's questioning them. Is this evidence? Or is this memory talking? Now let's talk about empathy. Many intuitive introverts don't just hear words. They feel subtext. You walk into a room and immediately sense atmosphere. You pick up insecurity hidden beneath humor, tension beneath politeness. Mirror neuron systems play a role here. Your brain simulates others' emotional states internally. That makes you perceptive. It also makes you absorbent. Without boundaries, empathy turns into emotional overload. You start carrying what isn't yours. And when your brain is constantly scanning patterns and emotional signals, it rarely rests. This is where reflection becomes rumination. Healthy reflection extracts lessons. Rumination loops without resolution. You replay conversations. You simulate alternative outcomes. You analyze decisions long after they're finished. That mental looping can create analysis paralysis. Because you see multiple possibilities, you also see multiple risks. Decision-making becomes heavy. Add overstimulation, and the result is what many call the introvert hangover. After extended social interaction, especially in chaotic environments, your nervous system crashes. You feel foggy, detached, irritable. It's not dislike, it's depletion. Now place this nervous system into modern culture, a culture that rewards speed. Volume, visibility. From classrooms that praise the fastest hand raised to workplaces that mistake confidence for competence, the loudest voice often gets credit. Meanwhile, the quiet strategist has already mapped the long-term outcome. Over time, this mismatch can distort your self-perception. You may think you're behind, less ambitious, less capable. You're not. The system prioritizes reaction. You're built for response. That difference matters. Personality frameworks can feel validating when you first discover them. They give language to your wiring. But there's a danger in over-identifying with labels. You are not a fixed type. Neuroplasticity means your brain adapts. Social confidence can be trained. Emotional regulation can be strengthened. Your introversion explains your starting point. It does not define your ceiling. So how do intuitive introverts thrive? Not by becoming louder versions of other people, but by designing smarter systems. Intentional social budgeting. One deep conversation instead of 3 shallow ones. Scheduled solitude. Time without digital noise so your brain consolidates insights. Layered boundaries. Emotional, informational, digital, career alignment. Roles that reward foresight, strategy, creativity, research, counseling, design. Environments that allow autonomy instead of constant urgency. And expression. Your inner world needs an outlet. Writing, creating, building, speaking. When your insights stay internal, they create pressure. When they're externalized, they create impact. For most of your life, you may have felt slightly out of sync. Too reflective, too intense, too quiet, but the world doesn't lack noise, it lacks depth. It lacks people who pause before reacting, who see beyond immediate emotion, who think long-term. That's what you bring. You're not here to compete with volume, you're here to understand patterns others miss. And when you stop trying to fit into noise and start building around depth, something shifts. You don't disappear, you rise differently. If this made you feel seen, don't just scroll away. Comment one word that describes your inner world. I read them. And if you want more psychology breakdowns about the quiet minds that think differently, subscribe. This channel is built for people who feel too deep for surface-level conversations. You're not strange. You're wired for depth, and depth is power.